Hey guys, welcome back to User Experience Points. In this episode, we're going to talk about Splatoon. And there is a lot to talk about. This game is an utter delight. Everything from the onboarding to the way new features are introduced, all of it just feels perfectly designed for kids. You know that feeling you get when you watch like a newer kids cartoon and you're like, wow, I'm really glad kids are watching this. I get that feeling from the user experience design for this game. So let's start with the onboarding, which is essentially the experience you get the very first time you start the game. Or when you make another profile so you can trigger the onboarding, because God knows I wasn't going to wait till I made this video to play this game. So boom, right away, you launch the game for the first time to pick your character. What's really interesting about this screen is that the instructional text is not referring to gender. It's just asking you to pick your character. I really like this because it's essentially taking your gender out of consideration for which one you're going to pick here. It's like the exact opposite of when Professor Oak greets you at the beginning of a Pokemon game and is like, "Oh, welcome to the world of Pokemon. Are you a boy or a girl?" In the world of Splatoon, it's okay to pick the one with the dangly tentacles, even if you're a boy. I mean, why wouldn't you? That's the best one. So after you've made the obvious choice, you then get to pick your skin tone and eye color. And after that, you get the chance to confirm your choices before you commit. But what's great is that it also lets you know you can change your appearance at any time. One could argue that this copy might not be necessary for someone who's played an online shooter before and knows that aesthetic choices generally are something you can swap at any time. This is a game for kids. And honestly, you should never pass up an opportunity to reassure a user. So now that your character has been created, you're dropped right into the tutorial. Overall, it's pretty well crafted and does a decent job of teaching you each of the controls in the context of using them. Though what I really like is that all of the controls are available to you right away. There's nothing more annoying than a tutorial that only lets you do things after it tells you how to do them. There's nothing wrong with letting your players figure stuff out on their own. My only complaint is that during the tutorial there's no indication that you can turn off the motion controls in favor of aiming with the right analog stick. The motion controls work fine, but they're definitely not for everyone, and it would have been nice to see some messaging that just says, "Hey, we'll let you adjust this later." Or even better, since aiming is literally the first thing you do in the tutorial, just let people choose. So, after finishing the tutorial, you're brought to the actual title screen, which is now the first thing you'll see each time you launch the game. I really like this because it feels like a properly crafted experience when it comes to onboarding new people. It would have been odd if they started you on a title screen and then you went and selected like new game or something. This makes sense because Splatoon is just not that type of game with save files. Like, this is it, this is the game. So it just gets you started and then you're brought to the title screen. And then from here on out, that's what you see first. It just makes sense. Further setting the standard for your average play experience, the first thing you see after going through the title screen is your very first Inkopolis news report. In order to avoid bombarding new players with information that they might not understand yet, this is actually used to introduce the game's story the first time you see it. After first use, these news reports become the place where you learn about new content for the game and which maps are currently in rotation for multiplayer. I love this because it's a fun and digestible way for younger kids to experience what are essentially patch notes. Although sometimes new information isn't presentable on screen and instead you're told to go to the website. But there's not even like a URL or anything, so it's not the most helpful copy. Also, these sequences can drag on for a while if it's the first time you've played in a couple of weeks. Thankfully, you can move things along a little bit by skipping through the dialogue if you just want to get back to playing. Next, let's talk about how Splatoon uses the Miiverse, which is basically like a social function on the Wii U where you can post little drawings and messages and such. Out of all the Wii U games I've played, this is definitely the best use of Miiverse I've seen. Not only does it make wandering around the game's hub world more fun, and sometimes a little awkward, it's also a gateway to some really useful features. In the same menu where you can give a Mii post a yeah, which is basically the same thing as a like on Facebook, you can also inspect that player's gear and then order it. For balance sake, it's limited and expensive to get gear this way, but I've never seen such a clear gateway to get really cool gear that you see on other players in a video game before. I'd like to see more of that. Providing the player with the tools they need to get really cool gear they're seeing on someone else within the game itself is so much better than them just being able to see the name of the gear and then Googling where to find it. Of course, you can also get new weapons and gear by visiting the game's shops. which is one of the best crafted user experiences I've seen in any video game ever. First of all, it has multiple access points. You can physically walk to the stores or jump right to them using the awesome tablet screen interface that we'll get to in a minute. No matter what store you go in, they effectively all have the exact same interface. It's actually a lot like the main menu in RPGs where you're switching between sections with the shoulder buttons. Except in this situation, you're just switching stores, which keeps each shopping run as effectively a single experience. It's also just really convenient. The way subtle animations are used to point you to useful features like the store switching that I just mentioned and trying stuff on is also a really nice touch. The weapon shop takes trying stuff on a step further by letting you actually test out guns in a little arena. And once you're in the arena testing weapons, you can switch to any other weapon in the store without having to leave and then come back. It's brilliant. Unfortunately, the weapon shop also has my biggest major complaint with the item stores. See, whenever new weapons are added to the game, or you unlock new weapons in the store, the shopkeeper has to give you a little spiel about each one. Now, if you haven't played in a while, this could take a while. Now here in this footage, there's like 2, but once I went in here and there were like 7. Even something as simple as the option to skip through the new weapon notifications would be really nice. Alright, next, let's talk about the interface on the Wii U tablet screen. When you're in the game's main area, it's basically your menu. You can adjust options, fast travel, that sort of thing. The information architecture here is fine. There's not too much to say about it. But there is some really cool stuff going on with the visual design and the messaging. It's always cool to see creative visual design, but it's more impressive when it actually enhances usability. In this case, the style of each element on the map here actually tells you what type of functionality it serves. The large black buttons are fast travel options that will take you to an entirely different screen, like the multiplayer lobby or one of the stores. These smaller, kinda chat balloon style icons represent locations in the area that you can walk to but not fast travel to. And of course, the tabs on the right will take you to different sections within the tablet screen's menu. Now let's switch gears and talk about how the tablet interface is used in multiplayer. Of course, the first thing I have to talk about is the adorable little squid jump game you can play while you're waiting for the next multiplayer match to start. It's a great bit of UX design the way this spinning animation is used to draw your eye down to the tablet so that you can discover the game for the first time, and the way it's used again to get you in the mindset that it's taking you out of that and that the multiplayer match is starting. Once you're in a match, the tablet becomes your map screen. This allows you to see how much of the map each team has covered in ink and where all of your friends are. This gives you some really easy to understand tactical options to consider while you're waiting to respawn after you get splatted. If you're playing with a friend and want to jump right to them, you can tap their name on the right, or you could just tap whichever arrow is the closest to where you want to be. It's one of those great situations where UX design and game design align perfectly. So while we're on that topic, let's talk about the process of actually getting into a multiplayer game. Naturally, you start in a lobby, and for the most part, I love this screen. My favorite part is that the default game type, regular battle, is placed in the middle of the list of options. This is a really great convention to use in console games because most controllers don't have a way to really quickly scroll through a list. So by placing the default selection in the middle, any other option is not too far away. This makes picking a game type and jumping in incredibly fast, which is great because it's the primary use case of this menu. Information hierarchy is also nicely spaced out with information about your current game selection on the left and everything you can do with your character on the right. Everything to do with your character is solid. It provides all the information that's pertinent to multiplayer you could possibly need and a shortcut to changing your equipment. Over on the left we have some solid attempts to improve the user experience that falter in minor ways. First we have the ability to review the rules of the selected game type. Unfortunately, the actual flow is just a series of screens you can only navigate forward through and can't back out of without clicking through the entire thing. And way down below that we have an amazing feature that I never even noticed until I was recording footage for this video. This recon feature allows you to explore the current maps in rotation for the game type you have selected. That's incredible. I would love to be able to do that in Destiny. Anyways, this feature is wonderful, but as I mentioned, it's kind of hidden, don't you think? I mean, what's going on with this extra space in the Maps menu? Unless the plan in the future is to have 3 different maps in rotation, I don't really see the point. Scoot that button up and let it shine, and then add it to Destiny so I can actually learn my way around the new maps. And finally, I'm just going to wrap this up with a quick point about the ability to play this game with friends. Right now, the features are pretty much non-existent. You can join up with your friends if they happen to have a game open, but there's no ability within the game itself to actually communicate with your friends and set anything up. I wouldn't say this is an example of bad design, since it seems to be more to do with Nintendo's very cautious stance when it comes to creating online features for games aimed at kids. And that covers it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely check out the other 35 episodes, and please share them around with everyone you know who you think might be interested. Now before I go, I've got a little bit of housekeeping to do, so please enjoy some really great multiplayer footage while I do that. So first of all, I just want to say thank you. This channel actually, as far as I can tell anyways, has not lost any subscribers since I took a break from doing UXP. That number was at somewhere around 175 after the most recent UXP video, and now we're at over 200. That's awesome, and thank you so much to those of you who brought in new people, and welcome to anyone who discovered the channel while I was gone. All that being said, UXP is definitely not returning to its weekly schedule. I just don't have the time, unfortunately, to put that much work into videos on a weekly basis. But I do have more episodes in the works. They're just going to be on a much more loose release schedule. They're just going to come out when they're done. It's not ideal, but it will at least allow me to really focus and make sure I make solid videos instead of just trying to crank something out every single week. So, thanks again everyone for sticking around, and I look forward to hearing your reactions to this video, and I can't wait for you to see the next one.